Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Foreign Minister. I'm very pleased to be in Sri Lanka at this defining moment in your history. And I thank government and people of Sri Lanka for the very warm welcome during my stay in Sri Lanka. I have just had a very good meeting with His Excellency President Rajapaksa. We discussed many issues, including how to address Sri Lanka's immediate humanitarian needs and how the United Nations can best help reintegrate people displaced in the fighting and how to promote national reconciliation. I also discussed these matters with the Foreign Minister Bogologama. The challenges facing the government are huge, and I appreciate their leadership at this crucially important time. As you know, I spent most of today visiting the IDP camps at Manik Farm and overflying the former conflict zone. It was a very sobering visit, very sad and very moving. I saw for myself the circumstances in which the survivors find themselves and the suffering they have experienced. Many have lost members of their family, many were sick or injured. Most have lost their homes, belongings, and livelihoods. Some gave me letters telling me how hard life is in the camps. We don't have enough food, one said, rice, cooking oil, sugar. I cannot get out of the camp for emergency medical care, said another. They worried about reuniting their families, educating their children, returning to their homes and communities. The government is doing its utmost. I commend its tremendous efforts. But the government lacks resources. There is a wide gap between what is needed and what is available. That is why I am here. The long conflict is over. Now is the time to heal, for all Sri Lankans to unite for a just and lasting peace. We must seize this opportunity. First, we must help the government meet urgent humanitarian needs. To do so effectively, I have told the President and Foreign Minister that the UN and other international humanitarian agencies need immediate and unimpeded access to the camps. Issues of overcrowding must be addressed. So must the needs of special groups such as children, pregnant women, and the elderly. Second, rehabilitation, reconstruction, reintegration, and resettlement. I have urged the government to return people to their homes as soon as possible. In this regard, I welcome the government's announced plan to return 80% of the IDPs by the end of the year. I also strongly urge the government to expedite screening and registration processes, as well as make it easier for families to reunite and allow people more freedom of movement in and out of the camp. Demining is a top priority, and I have offered the United Nations expertise and full assistance in this area. Third, and most importantly, for Sri Lanka's future, I have most strenuously urged the government to initiate a political process of accommodation, dialogue, and reconciliation. Sri Lankans of every ethnic and religious identity, Tamils, Sinhalese, Muslims, must enjoy equal justice, economic opportunity, and security under the law, as President Rajapaksa declared in his recent address to Parliament. The government should undertake certain confidence-building measures to clearly and unmistakably signal its good intentions in addressing root causes of Tamil and Muslim grievances. Full transparency and respect for legal due process and human rights are essential. If issues of reconciliation and social inclusion are not dealt with, history could repeat itself. There is danger of social disruption and even renewed violence. Looking ahead, I would emphasize that international partnership is key to Sri Lanka's future. The world is watching and ready to help. All the measures I have just discussed must be taken in parallel and should be undertaken immediately. The more open, transparent, and proactive the government is in meeting these challenges, taking account of the concerns of the international community, the brighter Sri Lanka's future will be.
Over the war zone today, and did you see evidence of massive bombing? Could you describe to us what you saw as you flew over in the helicopter, flew over the war zone today, and did you see what you think looks like massive bombing?
As I was flying over the zone of conflict, I was first of all thinking that the fighting must have been very severe. And I was thinking of all civilian people who were forcibly trapped in such a very limited space on the beach without much shelter. That was the most inhuman suffering they must have had. That my heart were all with those people who were finally rescued. But quite a number of people were killed and lost their lives. I was very sad about this fact. Now, as I have seen, first and foremost, we must clear all these landmines which must have been planted there. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for government to resettle those displaced persons. That's why I said the first priority for the United Nations and other international community would help government to clear these mines, demining. We will try to organize it.
Prime Minister, is the Sri Lankan government prepared to launch an inquiry or investigation into possible war crimes committed by both sides in this conflict?
Now, one thing is we should not speculate. And any of these, what we are trying to study, is not a matter that would arise where Sri Lanka is concerned. We are quite confident of that fact. Facts must justify the means. And therefore, it is not a matter that the government at all is concerned for the reason it cannot arise. And the definition of what war crimes are very clear. And therefore, Sri Lanka is not within that definition at every rest.
I have United Nations humanitarian agencies and ICRC and many other international humanitarian agency workers. They should be given unimpeded access and freedom of movement within the camp.
Do you still believe that there was a bloodbath in Sri Lanka, or do you think that your statement was not correct?
I myself didn't mention that particular word. I make it quite clear. But you should know that many people have lost their lives in the course of military fighting. That was very sad, very unfortunate, and in a sense unacceptable situation where many civilians have lost their lives. And I have been repeatedly urging the government, at the same time LTT, that they should not keep these civilians as a human shield, and government should refrain and be extremely careful and refrain from using heavy weaponry. That was my consistent message.